thing.
The gravity.
Like,
of
so
it.
I was born from the sky and I floated down on a mothership.
The day was.
No.
I knew it. I knew it. You look like that.
Someone asked me once when they were like, tell me about your origin story. That's how they said it. And I was like,
Solid.
that's fucking cool. That's a great way to phrase it. It's not that interesting, but I like that you said it that way. I was born in Seattle. Section 8 welfare. Parents were poor as crap. And then by the time I was like almost 7, they started getting their stuff together. But because I grew up that way, that's where I was like, okay, well, even my 4-year-old mind, I'm like, well, being poor is bad, which again, not technically wrong. Socioeconomically, there's a lot of problems with not having money. So I started being an entrepreneur when I was just like a kid. Like my mom would buy a bag of apples at the grocery store, like go grocery shopping, and I'd take a bag of apples she bought for like $1.25. I'd sell them each for $1 and put the money in my pocket. And I started little businesses over and over again. And
Apple business
throughout life.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, fucking Johnny Appleseed. And then in parallel to that, like the business and trying to start different companies, and I had like 1-900 numbers and stuff when I was like 12.
Wow,
I'd put ads in newspapers and stuff. Like it was just like a bunch of like sports betting,
since like day one.
Yeah, like all kinds of random stuff. And then in parallel to that, because I grew up in the darkness, like Bane talks about, was born in the darkness. I also was like on a search for meaning in like spirituality and like religion, and I studied every different religion. I read the teachings of Buddha and Taoism and every different version of Christianity, from Mormonism to Catholicism, and I got the Kabbalah set, like the Hebrew text Kabbalah, trying to figure that out, like all kinds of different stuff.
A true student.
So just studied everything, and then I got into real estate when I was still in high school, and I had good grades, but I just didn't want to go to school at all, and so I would try to either skip, or I would do late start plus teacher's assistant plus art class, so I could show up like for 4th and 5th class, and then early release, But I started making money in real estate, and so then I dropped out of high school, and I had like some college credits as well because I was doing like Running Start, so I had like high school and college credits, but I just was like, I'm done. And then by the time, so I was 18, right before my senior year of high school, got my license, middle of senior year, dropped out. Time I was 20, I had 2 years of real estate license, which that qualifies as, at least back then, you had to have 2 years as a real estate agent to become a broker and have your own company. So by the time I was 20, I got my broker's license, started my own real estate company. And then by the time I was like 22, I would go out with friends a lot. Like, from even before I was 21, we'd go out a lot. And then after 21, we'd all go out in Seattle. And at one point, club owners and stuff would be like, hey, we'll pay you X amount of money if you come out, because we would go with like 150 people. We would just like roll deep out to anywhere.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so they were like, we'll get you this, get you that. And then finally I was like, why don't we buy our own club? And everyone's like, we can't do that. We're 21, 22 years old. I was like, let's figure it out. So simultaneously to like trying to buy a club, which I did somehow. I had no idea what I was doing, but I figured it out. And then I bought a restaurant. I like started a vodka brand, had this huge launch party, like all this stuff.
I had no idea
so
all this.
It was like this
He's
crazy,
done such cool stuff.
This crazy run. But like that like from like 22, 23 until I was like 25 or 26, the job was to like party. It was just that's the job. So I was just like, by the end of it, I was just bankrupt emotionally and spiritually and, and mentally, and just like completely devoid of my connection to anything with like actual life. Material success was great, but I didn't have any like foundation of meaning and purpose at all.
Sure.
So I kind of got lost in it. And then I got rid of everything, and I started meditating in like January 2012, and just like silent, just sitting there and quiet and just trying to be with myself a little bit, because I was so like done with my previous life. And then I asked a series of questions, and that led to like this profound spiritual experience where we're connected to like the oneness and unconditional love of like all of life. And I melted into that, and that was like 3 weeks. Like my personality just wasn't there. It was just this like unconditional love and this like oneness. And then after 3 weeks, it began to fade, and I was like, what the fuck was that? There's obviously more to life than this, just the material stuff. So started meditating, started like trying to figure it out, and then, like a month later, a friend introduced Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and then so I used his like that framework of like neuroscience and meditation to begin meditating, and as I started meditating throughout 2012, insights and things that would come to me is where I would just like write down in a journal, and that eventually became my first book. And then throughout that, like as I like 2012, 2013, realizing that like number one, I don't know how to publish a book, and also I don't know, like I don't want to work in like brick and mortar physical stuff, whether it's real estate or whatever else I was doing. And so I started building up the media agency, and then finally launched the first book in like 2016, and then had some good success with that, and then and then it was just kind of growing the companies from there. So that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot more.
There's a lot more.
What I love about you is you're so fascinating. You've done so much cool stuff, and even I've heard all these stories before, so I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Because I'm I've been to this
we've talked
several
about this,
times. But
we used to go on hikes, and then when we first met, we go on these hikes, and he would just had so many great questions, and so
yes,
and he'd always catch me on the uphill.
yes.
And then
but I just you've lived a very fascinating life. I just love talking with you and hanging out with you, and you're so good at telling your story too, which I think is also because I try and get right to the point with things. So I find that my story's I did this and then I'm done.
Yeah.
But you're very good at making
trying to make it a story. Yeah.
I got my notebook out for follow-up questions.
Yes.
I know we're here to talk about Anthony.
Yes, we are. And we'll get the book going. Share your books and stuff too, which I think will be great. Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go.
Are we ready?
Oh, they've been going.
Oh, we've been going?
Yeah.
Oh,
we're almost done, dude.
Yeah, it's actually, your story's long.
It's been 2 hours.
I hope you don't mind.
It was 99 years. Oh, sorry about that. All right, guys, let's talk about Anthony.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Welcome to Page Turners, and or midway through, welcome again to Page Turners podcast. I am Corey Gladwell, and this is co-founder and host Corey Fraden.
Hello.
This over here is you want to intro Anthony?
Yes, this is Anthony Moore, our director of fulfillment for Authrs.io. Super excited for him to be here.
Incredible author as well.
Incredible author, has a long history of just being well known online for his writing ability, prowess. Longtime entrepreneur as well. 1,000 questions for you. Super excited for you to be here.
Yes.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Anthony, do you want to go? I know Corey just kind of shared his background a little bit. Do you want to go into your background
Didn't
too?
even know we were recording. I'm just yakking away.
Yeah, you're all good. The fun thing, the intention behind us and having you here is a lot of people are hey, we are ghostwriters, so we are often in the shadows, but often people want to know
who's this team we
who
talk
are the
about?
shadows? We actually want to know real people exist. So
Yeah.
it'd be super cool to learn more about you for anyone watching, for anyone that's interested in working with us, or anyone interested in joining the team, for them to be oh, this is cool that this is a real person that is part of the company. So I would love to hear about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super stoked to be here. Hey, everyone watching. My name is Anthony Moore. I have been writing for a long time. That's kind of just the overview of this. So in college, I chose to be an English major, which was the worst major ever. It was on every single top 10 worst majors. And I was like, screw it, I'm going to be a freaking writer.
I love it.
I forgot the name of the poem, but the day I knew I wanted to be a writer, it was in my creative writing class. It was in my second year of college, and there was a poem written by a woman who was talking about being overweight. And she had written her poem in a way where the lines and stanzas were like an outline silhouette of an overweight woman. And I was just cool. That is crazy. I was blown away that writing could do that to you. Just to speak through the actual infrastructure. Anyways, it was day one. I was I'm in.
I love it.
So I always knew I wanted to be a writer, and I knew that there was a lot of potential for being a writer and communicating and lots of things beyond just writing a book. You could be a speaker. You could help people. You could really reach a huge audience. I mean, back in the 2010s, or 2000s, where internet's blowing up. You could be a video person. You could do all these things. So out of college, I was able to get a writing job. I was just editing articles, and I was just kind of doing the whole beginner writer thing. And the whole time I would go to coffee shops after work to be I'm going to build my empire. I'm going to be this writer. My passion back then was to be a kind of career coach for college graduates because everyone was having a hard time getting a job. And a few years later, I was just kind of realized I was man, I'm doing this for years and I've gotten no progress. My highest view day was maybe 200 views, for 4 or 5 years. And I'd been trying everything. I'd posted just dozens and dozens of articles, I'm sure a lot of us have, who want to be a writer. It wasn't working. It was really frustrating. And I was maybe I'll be a career coach then, just actually pay the bills while I'm being a writer. Got my master's in psychology with a focus on career coaching. And then I became a career coach. I was working for a university in their career services. And I was I hate this. Dang it. I wish I'd known that before I went to my freaking grad school for years, Yeah. So I was just at this place where I was I want to be a writer. I'm in my mid-20s. My wife and I are look, I just graduated. Let's just take a year to go to South Korea to teach English for a year. And I was great, let's do that, travel the world. It's always been a dream of ours. And I was once, I had this sense, I was once I moved there, I was if I don't make writing work here, it's probably never going to work. I don't know. So fortunately, it did work. I was there at nice weekends, holidays, early mornings. I was just writing my ass off. And I wrote hundreds of articles, hundreds, I moved there in February of that year. In March, April, May, I wrote an article a day. And again, I had gotten like 100, 200 views tops for like 5 years in a day. And then one day in April, I remember I was at this coffee shop. It's called the Twosome Place. They have great names for coffee shops in South Korea. And I saw I had 5,000 views and counting that day. And I was just like,
this is on like Medium?
Yeah, sorry. I was I was writing on a site called Medium.com. It's a big writing platform, just
Shout
like
out
one
Medium.
of millions of writers there.
Looking
and I was
for
like,
sponsors.
I was like, it's happening. It's happening. And ever since then, I've kind of just been like a full-time writer where it worked out. And by the end of that year in South Korea, things were going great. I was making thousands of dollars a month. I did the whole like content creator thing, online courses, coaching programs. I was offered to have a book deal, which is a pretty unusual thing. Where like I didn't have to kind of find a publisher. They found me. They're like, hey, you're blowing up. You're getting millions of views. You want to write a book? And I was like, heck cool. Yeah. Which I'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
So just I did the whole writing thing. And it was working out great until it wasn't working out as great, And I spent about 6 years kind of running everything myself. And I just kind of did everything you can imagine that you've probably seen people do, like online courses, coaching programs, affiliate links, the freelance work, all this stuff. But it was just kind of hard doing everything by yourself.
Yeah.
I just got so burnt out by the end. I was just pivoting multiple times. I was doing high ticket coaching and sales and whatnot, just trying to keep things afloat. Didn't really work out that way. I really wanted it to, but for lots of reasons, the algorithms and kind of like hinging your entire business on like an algorithm is not a good idea.
So true.
Which I was.
So
I was like, I didn't
place.
change anything. Why am I getting like 70% less of everything? So anyways, to like wrap that up, I kind of stepped back into like consulting in the corporate world and kind of like agency work. And like, it turns out being a great writer is a great thing to be. And I can really use those skills across different industries. And I've worked in, since then, I've like worked in tech and real estate and finance and entrepreneurship. And I can really speak to a lot of the people who are wanting to do this. And so it's cool. It's kind of cool having both the writing experience and the business of writing experience. There's this great quote that I love by Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He says, it's not best author, it's best selling author.
That's it.
And I was like, God, it's really good, because back in my English days, there were so many writers who were just like, kind of like the purists, like philosophers of like great writing has to be just perfect artwork, and like that was their thing. And I was like, is anyone ever gonna read it though?
Yeah.
Are you gonna sell any copies of this? Because there's also that part too. Yeah. So by the end of this like 10-year journey, I had learned how to be a great writer. I was getting millions of views. I had an email list of over 125,000 subscribers, tens of thousands of social media followers, like just lots of activity. And I had this like awesome email like tab of like just like uplifting, encouraging emails of like just hundreds and hundreds of people saying like, this article changed my life. It's amazing.
That's
like
so
I
cool.
love your writing. So that was really cool. But then I also learned like the business behind that. And so I was able to help lots of other writers and authors kind of like, no, like if you have a message, great, but how can we actually make an impact with that? We're not just like writing a blog like I was for 5 years, getting 100 views a day, which is okay, but like there's not really much beyond that. So it's just kind of cool. So anyways, I'm here at Authors. I'm doing fulfillment. It is amazing here. I love working with you guys. This is like I've done lots of gigs over the years. This is my favorite one by far. It's awesome here, and it's just cool to kind of be in a place where I can use this whole breadth of experience of like speaking to writers, speaking to authors, speaking to high ticket clients, speaking to people who have a big message. And it's hard to write a book. It is so hard to write a book, and I can talk about my journey of doing that multiple times, but it's just really cool to be able to give back and use all this experience, because there's a lot of people who have been writing for way longer than I haven't had as much success. And fortunately, there are things there are concrete things you can do to change that, to really get your message out there.
That's so cool.
I have a billion notes.
I know. I was trying not to interrupt, because I'm like, I want to.
Do you want to ask? I mean, I have so many follow-up questions.
I just wanted to. Two things I wanted to mention on, which was one was you talked about like in college they have like the writers have to be it's a perfect way. Like there's this art. This is it, and that's so true for so many writers. And I think then that's what. Even people that are like a lot of our clients are busy professionals or whatever else, but even people that are just like lifelong, writers that want to be authors, all that stuff. That's where you get the definition of starving artist, is because it's like we get into this expectation of perfectionism. They either don't write, or if they do write and you get a couple articles that don't get enough views or whatever else, you're like, oh, I guess it's not for me. I guess no one cares. And it's like, no, that's like, to your point, that's just the algorithm. Like you just didn't catch fire. That doesn't mean it's not great. That doesn't mean it's not amazing. But there is so much to the business of it, and I think it's tough for people that are creative to match in that business together and have both. And that's what we've tried to do here, bringing amazing people that are creative and understand the business aspect of it as well. So yeah, that's amazing. I'm excited to hear about your book, and I know Corey has like 1,000 questions.
Yes,
too,
I know I do, but that was one of them. So thank you for bringing that up. That was great. Just bringing that up is like, like the nice thing about what we do is not only do they not have to write it, they also don't have to market it or promote it or do, because we do it all for them, which is really nice because I know so many people who are like, I'm the creator, I create this thing, but then they're like, well, no one's seeing it, and it's like, because you have to also be the marketer and the salesperson, like you have to all that stuff, and you're doing it by yourself. It's the whole thing. I just want to touch on a couple things, Anthony, that just check. Just so like, yeah, you have like 60,000 followers on Medium, which for people that aren't familiar with Medium, to have a lot of followers on Medium is like 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Like to have 60,000 followers on Medium doesn't sound a lot from like an Instagram perspective, but it's equivalent of like, it's really, really impressive. Like 200,000 email signups. You've been featured in a ton of places too. Like I had like CNBC and like a bunch of other spots. Like to give you more shout outs. Anthony, and you mentioned fulfillment. So for those that don't know, fulfillment like for us is, so we have like marketing, we have sales. Fulfillment is like everything related to client work. So from the moment a client comes in and says like, welcome,
all their onboarding
to the time we say goodbye, like Anthony is overseeing all of it as the director of fulfillment. And Anthony himself has done a ton of stuff with the company and has continued to grow with us, like writing, editing. He was a client success manager. So he was the one meeting with the clients. He was the one writing the books. Like he's done all the things. Now as director of fulfillment, it's so... I was gonna say fucking exciting. It is fucking exciting.
It is fucking exciting.
So that's the reality.
Drop that F-bomb on there.
Here we go. Jumping off point...
I was going to add into your story, right? Your journey of, and people ask like, well, what does it take to get a book deal? Or they say, well, how can I do this? Can I just go and like, I have an idea for a book and I just want to share it. I'm like, in 1985, you could have done that. Or in 1992, maybe you could have had an idea. You knew somebody with a publisher and you could have pitched that idea, maybe. And if you were a celebrity, yeah, you got it. Or if you were someone that had some TV experience, whatever, you got it. There wasn't social media. There wasn't, there was kind of blogs, but not really at all. Not in 1985, but maybe in the late 90s. But every major, like we're talking about James Clear earlier, or like Mark Manson. Mark Manson. Those like these big authors people know of. Your journey is how they got to that place. They wrote blog after blog after blog after blog after blog, and then some sucked, some got better, some went viral, and then someone said, "Hey, we could write a book on that one viral blog." So if you want to spend, and even for myself, it took me 5 years to write my first book, right? And I didn't do any blog. I should have done more blogs, but I didn't. I took them all down. It worked out really well. But either way, the point is like that's what it takes. So for anyone that's like, "Hey, I just want to do it myself," buckle up, like that's fine, and you can do it too.
It's
but like,
business.
It's work. It's a lot of work to get to that point of like, hey, I've had some success. You posted hundreds of blogs, and then that one took off, and then you get some more. So it's like, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
To that point.
Or call us. Is all I'm saying.
There it is. Call the number below.
Yes, exactly.
So you'd been writing for a number of years. Why do you think it finally clicked in Korea?
We should buy like 1-800-books or something. That's not enough words, but anyways, go ahead. I just was like that'd be funny.
Okay, that would be funny.
That would be funny.
1-800-books for you.
Yeah, buy books or something.
Whatever.
Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think was different about Korea? Was it just that you were being able to write so much so consistently? Do you think it was the mindset of being in a new place? Like, what do you think it was about being there that allowed it to take off?
Yeah, good question. I mean, traveling somewhere, everything's new. New food, new language, new city, new house, new job, new everything. But I didn't have a ton of free time. I was working full time as a teacher there. And so a lot of people think like if only I had time, I could just move like, Henry David Thoreau and Walton. Like if I just go to the forest for a year, then I can write a bestseller. So I actually had less time over there. But I think what really changed was I started to see writing as like a business, like a strategy. Before what I was doing was like, I would think that these are like my pure, unadulterated thoughts. This should be enough. This is me being pure and authentic and like the best I could without realizing that it sucked. It sucked. Writing the first couple of years was just so not good. And I've kept so many of those articles so I can look back. I've shown them like, look at this article. Look how bad it is. To see like that's how far I've come. I thought that was good at the time. It wasn't. A big thing I realized was that writing isn't about me. That was a big thing for my ego. It's not about my story. The more I can make it about the audience, the better, because they're in it for them. They're the hero of their story. They don't really care about Anthony Moore. They're like, how can this person help me in my story, which I get. So I started to see things differently where I realized, number one, I had to be better. I had to be much better than I was. And these writers who I would love, I was like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? So I began to really study the business and the art of writing. So what I did for the first time ever, I've been writing for like 5 years, right? I kind of put my ego aside. I was like, how can I learn how to do this? I'm not good enough yet. How can I fix this? So I found my favorite writers, people on Medium, authors, blogs, and I just like studied them as if I was studying like a sports team of like, here is the exact thing they're doing. Here is what I need to do. And so I had this like huge spreadsheet of like how many average words they have in their headlines.
Interesting.
How long are their articles? How many lines per paragraph break? How many quotes they use? How many words they use? I don't know. Like what's the vocabulary level? How many pictures that like just how often do they post? Every single thing I could think of. I was studying them and trying to model that. And I was like, they're writing a lot more like tersely than I am. Like I just had these like big long chunky paragraph, right? And they're like, and like I was realizing how most of my favorite writers wouldn't have more than like 4, maybe 5 lines without a paragraph break. And I think online people have like pretty short attention spans. Medium in itself is like a much like longer form place. And even like the longer form articles there, it's like on a phone, like a paragraph on like your laptop is like there's a whole screen. It's very intimidating. People don't like reading that as much. There's a place for that. But I just really modeled what was working. And then every single month I would, again, like approach this like a business, like which of my articles were performing well and which ones weren't. And I was writing about everything. I was writing like movie reviews. I was writing about food. I was writing about personal growth and finance and relationships. And then I was like seeing like, oh, some of these topics are really hitting. Others are completely not. And so every single month I would look back at my stats and be like, this is a clue. Let's follow the breadcrumbs and double down on that over and over and over. And like a few months, I just blew up. Not to say like that can happen all the time. And I know that people watching this might already be doing this in like a sense, but I just really became a student of writing. I became like a writer, but also like a studier of how this works. So I never did it before. And I think that there's so much to gain from like seeing what works. And so I like played drums growing up, right? And I didn't want to go to drum lessons, I remember, because I was like, well, once I go to drum lessons, they're going to ruin this perfect childlike potential I have here. Once I learn all these like structures, like I'm going to lose it. Of course, I was a terrible drummer. I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't find a rhythm. And it was only through actually going through like lessons, like learning like here's like a basic beat and here's like the sheet music and like why this matters, where I was like, okay, now I actually have like a track to go on and get better. And I think a lot of writers like that were like, well, if I'm just studying other people, I'm going to lose my voice, my vision. But really, it's like you're learning like the rhythms of how writing works. And it's true, you can still have your own specific message and how you write and like what, like, and it got to a point where my favorite authors and writers were the ones I could recognize immediately without even seeing the name, which I could. I was like, this is this person. I know it is because this is their style. And so a lot of writers want to kind of have this like shortcut, just be like, this is my pure unadulterated artwork writing. I don't want to change that. But once you start studying it and the business of writing, it's like not best author, it's best-selling author. It's like there's 2 sides to that. Once you can focus on that, I think the writing, you can work on writing and be better at that. But if you focus more on the infrastructure of everything around that, that's what I did, and I saw a huge success very quickly.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful. I mean, I've talked to friends about this in the past too, with all kinds of different topics. Where not specifically even with writing, which is so great to hear you talk about it with writing, but friends that will talk about different, spirituality or business or whatever, some kind of insight that you feel like is like, you have those self-realizations of yourself, and you're like, oh, this is genius, this is brilliant, and you don't want to, you don't want to tamper it with anyone else's. Like, I don't want to read anyone else's stuff. And it's like, you're not going to lose what you got, but then you read something and you're like, oh, I'm not the first to discover this, oh, I didn't invent this concept or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, I see, okay. But to your point, it's like that just adds for me at least, when I started like studying something, I get excited about something I'm realizing or get on a path on, and I'll start studying it. It just gave me so much more ammunition to be like, okay, I'm on the right track. This is real. This could work. That could work. It doesn't mean we have to take people's styles or take their and just do whatever they're doing. It's like either going to empower what you're doing, or it's going to say, okay, 9 out of 10 of these people did this thing and they didn't do the other thing that I'm trying to do. So let me just drop that. I don't need it to do it this exact way. And to your point, like you didn't just study like writing itself, but you studied the strategy and the business around it, and a lot of the marketing. Like how do that short and punchy, writing style, and how do they structure the paragraphs, and all of that stuff is so freaking important when it comes to everything, especially with books. People come in with, and you've seen this obviously with our business. People come in and they're like, well, is there a limit to how many pages we can have? And I'm like, well, we try to keep it around 200, maybe 150, 200, maybe a little over, but it's formatted in 5.5 by 8.5, whatever else. Like, what if I want to go for 400 pages? And it's like, you don't need to. There's no one that needs that. And if you do, we'll see it in a decade when you write it yourself, because we're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. There's very few books that need that. So, but it's to that. It's not just like cutting out waste. It's getting really specific in the words you're choosing and the way you're delivering it. And like you mentioned too, like what writing level, what grade level, comprehension level are people actually writing at? Because the reader itself, we might want to sound good. I remember when I wrote my first book, I was like adding in all these friggin' huge words there. And my editor was like, we don't need, do you want to have a glossary that's 5 pages? And I was like, why do we need a glossary for these? She's like, no one knows that word, first of all. Yeah. Everyone might be reading at an 8th grade comprehension level on average. And then also, too, the way you're using this word is how you think that word should be used. And it's right, but there's 5 different ways you can use this exact word. So someone might read this and think something entirely different. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. But it's that thing where I went to that same thing where I'm like, I just want to say I want my voice. I want my this whole thing, which is, again, just to your point, it's just all ego. It's like, get yourself out of the way, make a difference in someone's life, study the actual game and make it work. So
when you were in college and you're like, I'm going to be an English major, so just continuing on. When you were in English and you were like, hey, when you were in college and I'm going to pursue English, were you seeing yourself as a writer? Because I know you're also entrepreneurial. Were you like, I'm a writer and I'm going to make a business out of this? Or were you like, I'm an entrepreneur and this is how I'm going to make money? Or like, how did you view it? Or was that a concern? Like, and how did was your family like, hey, yeah, go do it? Or were they like, hey, I don't know? Like, how were those early days?
I thought of myself as a writer first. I had no idea what business was. I was like, if I just write a lot, I can make money, right? Through ads or something. Like, that's as far as my knowledge went. And over time, I realized that you could really leverage a good piece of writing, like a book even, to do huge things. And so I was able to like speak in conferences, and I was speaking back at my old university, and
Let's go.
I was like
awesome.
getting booked for like as a coach. Like I had hundreds of clients, and it's like all that came from writing, right? And for instance, my book, so my publisher reached out to me, and it was based on like my most top performing article. It was it was called Why Most People Will Remain in Mediocrity. It was still my biggest performing article, like so many views. And it's like, once you can write something like that reaches certain, like some threshold, then like things just open up so much. And so I had no idea that was a thing. So fortunately, a lot of people around me were supportive, but I think the world wasn't as much. Again, like you look up like top 10 worst degrees, English is always on there. Being a writer is tough, especially nowadays with like AI. Things can feel like the barrier of entry is so low nowadays. There's so much competition. There's so many other writers. But then conversely, I actually love that now, because I've always thought that like cream rises. And if you just focus on building the skill, so many people around you are not that good. They're not willing to like do all the work, right? And if you can do that, then you can reach this threshold, and like so much can open up from that. So it's just really cool to see writing as like a platform where I love, like that's like my favorite skill I have. Like I do skateboarding and cooking and all these other things, but like writing is my favorite thing, because
so cool.
You can reach so many people like that. There's just so much like potential to reach so many different kinds of people in so many different ways. And now you can turn an article or a book into like 5 different things, right? You can like write an artitle and you can record it. So that's like a kind of podcast audio, right? You can make a short form or long form video about it. You can make a book out of one article. There's so many things you can do by just doing this one thing. And so it's just really cool that even if you don't think you're a great writer, you can just do enough to kind of reach through the noise, and then use a big article or a book or whatever to then just like have like a megaphone for like so many people. So it's just really cool how that process works.
Tell us about your books. Tell us about the process. We got 2 here. If you want to show them.
This is not
the process.
You can buy this if you want. This is not about buying.
No, you have to buy it. You have to buy it or unsubscribe and never watch this podcast again. Do not book a call with us ever if you don't buy this book. You better bring it on your call. We want the receipts, people. We want the receipts.
So these are props. And so I have a traditionally published book. It's called What Extraordinary People Know. And I have a self-published book called Wealthy Writers.
Hey.
Can you see that okay?
I love that.
Right.
So
both
cool.
these, right? So traditionally published and self-published. Let's talk about the differences, and maybe if you're considering writing a book yourself, going with authors, going someone else, here's how the process works. So my traditionally published book, What Extraordinary People Know. When I was in Korea, I was writing really well, and I posted this blog. It was called Why Most People Will Remain in Mediocrity. I like love the idea of like mediocrity, how like most people fall into that. It's so easy, and like just there's ways to fix that. And that article blew up, and I was getting, so for years I was asking to be a guest poster in places like CNBC and Forbes, and everyone's like, no, screw you, dude, go away. And then after I wrote that, they're coming to me. They're like, hey, can I post this? I was like, are you the same person? The same person? Because I tried for years, right? So it works, right? And so my publisher was like, hey, there's an article, we want to write a book about this. And so there's a lot of things people don't know about a traditionally published book. So first of all, this almost never happens. Publishers almost never reach out to you. That's like a very rare process, and I'm super fortunate that happened to me. Most authors I know who went the traditional route had to do like just like the classic, like write a book proposal and pitch it like dozens and dozens of times, right? Stephen King wrote this great book on writing. It's like the best book on writing ever. And he just kind of famously tells how like his first story, one of his first novels, Carrie, it's like famous novel. I think he said 27 rejections from 27 publishers. And he said, and he would like keep up his rejection letters. And he would say, first I would use like a thumbtack. And eventually I had to like switch like a big old nail to hold up the weight of all these rejection letters, right? That's typically how it works. Yeah. You're like, will anybody publish this? Like I spent all this time, like thousands of dollars.
Like Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling was like 12 different times or 9 different times or something.
There's so many writers now. There's so much competition. It's so hard to do that. And so I was fortunate enough to like kind of cut through like the noise. They reached out to me. So let's just say you like kind of get the deal, right? So there's lots of things I didn't know about writing a traditionally published book. First of all, it takes a long time. A long, long time. And when you get a publisher, they have a lot of control over your book. So the article that started this was called Why Most People Will Remain in Mediocrity. I wanted my book to be called The Mediocrity Trap. And I had this like whole vision like what it would look like. And I was like, I want like this like white background with like the key, like a picture of like a key ring with like all these like things like weigh you down. It's just like the same old thing. And they're like, no. We're gonna do this other thing, and so I was like, well, why not? And there was all this back and forth, and they had so much control over the vision of it, and so we eventually kind of like found one that I liked. I still like my title better, but again, I was like in business with them, it was like a thing, and so they wanted this title, which I still like, but they kind of like chose a lot of things for me, and like of course it like wasn't just like them running off. I was like, okay, this one works, but I like the point is like I wasn't able to have everything look exactly the way I wanted it to be, and like that's their job for sure, but that was tough. Next, when I signed the book deal to when the book was actually in bookstores, it was 20 months. So a long, long time. And so they gave me like 5 months to write it. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Well, I'm like, fortunately, I'm like a writer. I could do it. But it was like pretty stressful to like write the whole thing myself while working my like full-time job, right? Or my full-time job as like a writer. And then it was like another like, 16 months before it was published because there was like timing windows and they like wanted to wait and it was like gonna be here. It's like, no, wait, now we're gonna wait 6 more months. I was just like itching this whole time to be like, where's my book, right?
Was that 16 months?
So real.
Was that just to get the book to like print or like all the marketing's like everything's done?
It was everything, yeah.
Okay.
And so they were doing all this stuff and so it just took so long and like I was telling my followers and subscribers like, hey, the book's coming actually 3 more months and it was like, it was hard to like not be able to like deliver that, right? Yeah. And then also something else that to like speaking of like money, right? So most traditionally published books, the authors start out at like maybe 10 to 15% of a cut of every sale. That's it. I was like, 10%?
It's crazy.
That's all I get? They're like, yeah, because we're doing all this work for you. And I was like, okay. And so my book sold for like $20, $25, right? And so if I sold one book, which is hard to do, I would get like $1 or $2, $1.50 actually. Like it wasn't that much. I was like, man, that's like not a lot of revenue, you know. And so my book did really well. It was like selling like hundreds of copies like day one. It was like big book launch, but I didn't really make that much money because my cut was so low. And there's all these just so like I was kind of turned off by the process. It was cool seeing my book in bookstores and having it, but like. The second time I wanted to write a book, which I'll get to like right now, I went the self-publishing route.
Yeah.
So I chose to do this way instead. So instead of going through the whole process again, I wanted to like write a book, and then there was just like there were going to be lots of delays with like, well, maybe we'll see, and like talk to us in Q3, and like all these things, right? And so I was like, screw this, I want to write another book, right? And so I wrote this book. It's called Wealthy Writers, and it was all about
buy it.
You can still buy this online somewhere. Yes. It was like a long time ago. It was all about like writing about writing, you know, and like it was about how to go viral, get followers, and get rich writing, which is kind of like what happened to me in so many ways. And so that process was so much better personally, and I think this is what Authrs does really well. And so this isn't a shameless plug. This is somebody who's actually done both of them, and I would prefer the self-published route, or like going with a place like Authrs, like would just give me control. So the main differences there were, first of all, it was just so immediate. I wrote the whole dang thing in
like all control.
Like 2-3 weeks. I went to like this specific coffee shop in LA where I was living, and I was like, I'm gonna write this freaking book, and I did. It was like 2-3 weeks. I cranked it out, right?
I love it.
And then from there, I just like upload everything on my own. It was all through Amazon, and like I could do it virtually, and it was just super easy. When you sell your book on Amazon, which is what we do at Authrs here, and like among other things, you get a 70% cut, 70%. So like so much more money that way, right?
Yeah.
I could sell directly to my audience through my subscribers and through my network and whatnot. I was getting so much more money. Things were happening so much faster. It was like from like the time I wrote it to the time I published it was like a couple months. I was just like, boom, you know,
get it done.
Like like the book launch happening now because it's gonna be done in 2 months. Like it was really cool. We just been able to like print as much as I want. I could see it myself. I didn't have to wait for things. I was just able to earn so much more money. I had so much more control over everything.
That's it. You have the copyrights, royalties, everything.
And also so my publishers for my traditional book, they didn't want me to be really upselling a lot of my current stuff in this book. It was more like, this is the book. It's in bookstores. It's kind of like our name on it. So let's just minimize that. It's like a team thing. Where Wealthy Writers, this was like a direct connection to my business. And so I had a coaching course, an online course, affiliate links all about Wealthy Writers. And so this book was an awesome leverage point that I could use. And I got booked as a conference speaker, and I got booked for dozens and dozens of podcasts, right? It was happening so fast. I was making so much more money. I had so much more control, and I could insert it so much seamlessly into my business. So kind of to wrap all it up, there's a lot of pros and cons to both. But I think one of the reasons why I love working at Authors so much is because I can see clients who can have this experience now. It's it happens so fast. Of course, we're writing it for you and ghostwriting, help you with that. So it kind of goes as fast as they want and how much they can give us. But I love that they can have control. I love that if they don't like a title, they can change it. Where my publisher is no, and I was like, really? Right? They have so much more oversight. They can insert it into their life so much more easier. If you put in I don't know, coupon codes or links to yourself, you can do that. So it's just really cool to kind of see that, and I love I can do that with our clients.
Yeah. So I thank you for sharing. First of all, and hold those up one more time for everybody.
You don't have to buy them. They're
you have to buy it.
You can if you want. You don't have to.
You have to buy it. Look at how cool these books are. Look at this. Look at this guy. I like them a lot. So I thank you for sharing. I'm really excited. I'm going to take these and read them. This is my first time seeing them too. So what I love is that you've done both, obviously, and you have the pros and cons for both. And what's cool about it too, so even with talking about KDP and self-publishing and everything, not only do you get more of the commissions, royalties and everything, you own the copyrights, just like for our clients and everything too. But you can also do, and you mentioned this, you can do print on demand. So you don't have to stock up on a bunch of books to sell them. They sell them, they print right when they're sold. But if you want to buy author copies, you can get them at the print cost, $2, $3, whatever it is. Buy 1,000 of them and sell them on your own website, and then keep this entire spread.
They did not want that for this one. They're
exactly.
Here's 20, but that's all you can get.
That's exactly
price for the rest of them.
Yeah. You can buy up to 999 at a time, and then buy more later of that. And so it's one of those amazing things because you can use it for everything. And then not to just put down traditional publishers or the big five. Yeah. There's a lot of cool publishers out there. I think they're great. Obviously, you have a traditional published book as well. And it's something that at the very end of our clients working with us, we do introduce them to a book agent. If that's the route they want to go, they can talk to a book agent. They can negotiate for a book deal. It's not guaranteed. We don't take any percentage of that, any ownership or anything. But we do give them that opportunity if that's what they want to do, because there are some people that that's what they want to do and they're going to make it happen. But the reason it's smart to go with us first, and this is a no shame plug, is and or do it yourself if you want to go on KDP and do your whole thing, write your book. But is we get you to a place where you can get a book deal. Like you talked about getting that traditional book deal. It's so rare someone would reach out to you to publish, right?
I've still never heard of it.
It doesn't happen, right? You have to really make this huge splash. You spent years writing, perfecting your craft, dialing it in, getting so many views, and then one catches, and then boom, you get, and even for, again, James Clear and Mark Manson and all that stuff, very similar with article. Then one gets up, and then they actually had to go and reach out. They didn't even get reached out you did. They had to go and reach out, and then you okay, let's frame a book around that. But there's so much that you kind of have to do to even get in that position. And so with authors, we get everybody as close to that position as possible, right? With the bestseller launch, the PR, the podcast interviews, all of this kind of credibility and authority. So that way, when you do talk to a book agent and you want to potentially get a book deal, you have the leverage to actually get something, right? Because a lot of times, you don't. I've been talking with my book agent since 2017 for my first book. And very similar is trying to negotiate back and forth, and I never got an offer. I still haven't. Right now, I'm talking to another publisher. I won't say it because she's trying to negotiate. But I've talked to Hay House in the past and Penguin, and talking to New One right now. But I've never gotten an offer where I'm all right, I'm gonna give up my royalties. I'm gonna give up my my rights and the creativity and everything, and then plug in. And so I wanted to write my next book too. And it was the same thing where I'm okay, well, should I wait? Should I not? So I wrote the next one. And I'm just keep selling thousands of copies, keep making money on it, keep growing the business. And then you have the option to be able to get that book deal at that time if you want. So yeah, it's so cool that you've been able to do both. Because I've never fully gone the traditional route because I'm just I don't know, guys.
There are pros and cons.
I don't know, guys.
I
would love it if I get like, again, even this current one, if I get one that's like a good offer that feels good, and there's a lot of the partnerships of the marketing and whatever else in there, because there's hybrid ones too, where you can get like, they'll give you all this advance, but then they're not going to do any of the marketing. You have to do it yourself. Or they'll do all the marketing, but they'll give you a tiny little bit of an advance. And then you hope you get plugged in, you know? So that's exciting.
Do you want to talk, so we were talking about book sales. Do you want to talk about how book sales often end up just being the cherry on top of the sundae when you factor in all these other things?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, I mean, and we talk about this with authors, right? And fulfillment, like, you know, some of our clients get, and you've made money with book sales, right? Sell the book, make money. You can do it again through Amazon and or, you know, Amazon ads to get more sales, or do the, you know, author copies and then sell them on your own website. Keep that entire spread of profit there. But those are just, again, it's that cherry on top. And like you mentioned, because of the self-publishing route and your control over that, you have the links to your, you know, a free opt-in here. You have an upsell here for a course, coaching, whatever else. But it's the selling of the books and then being able to, you know, make some royalties on it. That's the nice cherry on top. It's like, this is a nice added bonus. And there are some friends, we have friends that are you know, making $15,000, $20,000 a month, you know, Lexi, off book sales alone, nothing else, right? But that's like, she is focusing so full time on getting book sales. Or Jacqueline Hurst, one of our past clients, where it's like, she's sharing on social media, she's emailing her list, she's like, it's an active thing where she's making $80,000, $90,000 a year in book sales. For a lot of clients, and there's some clients that are making $1.5 million in consulting and speaking and sell 20 books, make $10 a year off book sales, but they're making a lot of money off doing everything else. And
because the book opens the door.
Because the book opens the door. You know, the book is where it's like, and you mentioned this too, Anthony, with like the repurposing the content, right? There's so many ways you can repurpose content from a book, from blogs, social media posts to articles to, you know, video to podcast, all that stuff. It's the same type of thing too, beyond just all these different repurposing things. It's all these different revenue streams. You know, yes, book sales, they're cool. You can make money in book sales, but we never look at it as like a selling point, because it's like, you can speak on stages, you can get paid to speak, you can do TED Talks, you can get consulting clients, you can sell courses, you can boom, 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 all these different things, get on podcasts, you can create your own podcast based around the book. There's so many different things that you can do to make money from that one thing as like the vehicle and become a wealthy writer. Shameless plug.
There it is. Great tie-in.
Hey.
That was a great tie-in.
What made best work.
What made you want to do another book? Was it just like you were just itching for one where you're like, hey, I want to create a new product? Like, what was the thing that was like, hey, I'm ready to write another book? Because I know it's a daunting project to take on by yourself, especially the self-publishing route, like writing it yourself.
Yeah. You know, in my experience, a lot of entrepreneurs I've met and people I've met, they don't just want to write a book. If they do, it's like a fiction book. It's like a story I like want to write. But a lot of times it's connected to other things. And kind of like what Corey G is saying over here is that in my experience with all these things I was doing, all these income streams I had, like revenue streams, I had like 7 or 8 of them, like links and courses and coaching and whatever. The book sales were the smallest one. And so I think I sold this one for like $10 when it launched, and I got like a few hundred sales like first couple weeks, and you know that was fine. I was getting like 70%, so $7 a copy, you know, couple grand. That was fine. But what I ended up doing actually is I actually switched to this model of selling where it was like a free plus shipping model, where I would give the book away for free.
Shout out Russell Brunson.
Yeah, it was like hook model strategy that I think is pretty popular. Yeah. I would give the book away for free. Awesome. Which I could not do with this one. My publisher would not want me to do that.
Yeah. Huh.
So I would buy a lot of copies of this myself, like hundreds of copies, right? And it was just like in my office. It was hilarious.
Really?
And what I would do is I would like have this like sales page where I would say the book is free, just pay shipping. And so I had people in like, you know, Germany. It's like, well, I want you to pay like $27 for shipping. Or people like next door, it's like here's like $2, right? So that would like kind of vary. So I was kind of breaking even on like shipping, I guess, whatever.
But now their credit card is on file,
and I have their information now, right? So if people buy your book through Amazon, through like Barnes & Noble, you're not going to get their email. You're like not going to get their contact. But it was so much more lucrative to me to be able to like have this like email list of people that be like, hey, like, and like once they bought this, they were like it was like off the races of like, here's the whole nurture sequence, here's everything else, here's my other book, by the way, if you want. Like it just opened up so much more, and that's where I was able to like leverage that to get on podcasts, to become a speaker, to be a consultant, to talk to other like big top tier writers. So for me, writing a second book was cool. I'd already kind of done it, and I was like, now that I've like kind of checked that box, how can I build everything else? And so
Were you scared to get all those physical copies to your house? Like, there's a lot of inventory.
It was, but it was like kind of fun, kind of like owning it and like just being more involved in the process. It was cool holding it again.
Side note: we also do include the free plus shipping funnel in the back end. It's in there along with the VSL funnel. So those are all in there. Yeah, it's an amazing funnel.
My mistake with this one, and something that the authors address, is that I also had no idea how to like run like the marketing ads side of things, right? So I'm a writer, and then I was doing all these like business things, but I had no idea how to do Amazon ads or Facebook ads or like run like the branding campaigns. And I kind of wasted a lot of money doing that, right? So I was running almost no ads. I eventually hired an ad agency that, for lots of reasons, just never worked out. I was spending thousands of dollars a month. They were like running ads, just it wasn't working. I don't think they really knew what to do. Authors does all this for us, right?
Yeah.
So I think things could have been even bigger if I had gotten that help and gotten that thing. So what I was learning was like, I can focus on what I know and know how to do well, which for me was like, like how to be like a writer, right? And then kind of like the business side of things. And for a lot of our clients, they might not be a writer, but they might be a great speaker. They might be a great consultant. They might be an expert in their field. They might be an amazing, like expert to like speak on a panel interview. So I love the chance to get people to do what they're really great at. And you don't have to learn Amazon ads, right? You don't have to learn like this like massive branding book launch campaign. Authors and stuff like does that for you. I had no idea what I was doing with this. I was like, so like I wrote the book. I could insert into like my kind of like landing pages and whatnot. But when it came to actually like really blowing it up, that was something great that my publisher did. They did all that for me. They were the ones like getting press releases and like connecting me with like other publishers and getting like featured on like websites. This I had to do all my own, which I was kind of doing, but I was making more like money in like my online courses, so I didn't do that as much. But I just love that. I think here at Authors, we can do all that for you. Like we just have this like this huge done for you package where it's like you don't have to learn Amazon ads and like editing and like branding and like podcast booking, like sales letters. Like that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing, right? So I did it all myself, and so I just love that we can kind of skip all that and like let people cut right to what they do best, which is talking about their subject matter.
So amazing. True. Especially because our clients are so busy. Like they're like the highest level of whatever it is that they're doing. Like they don't have time to figure all this stuff out. So it's, again, just shouting us out.
So cool.
What's your writing look like these days? Like I know you said you sold for, like I know for myself when I was,
speaking of which,
yes, but like I know for myself when I was doing that, when I was running my self-improvement blog for a number of years.
You did it every day. I was going to bring this up earlier. You wrote a blog every single day for a year.
For like a year, yeah.
I always had that on my like to-do list, like a yearly goal thing I was going to do.
Yeah.
You guys have actually done it. I have not.
It's not as glamorous as it sounds.
It's not as glamorous as it sounds, especially when you're getting the 300 views and you're like, let's go. Something's got to move.
7 months.
But so I ended up writing like I don't know. It didn't end up being every day. It ended up being like 200 something articles though.
We're gonna make it into a book someday. It's on my
So when I was,
he's like, no, we're not.
That the blog,
right, sorry, I'll stop.
No, you're good.
Okay.
The blog scratched the itch of the writing, and now even without doing that anymore, like I write so much. Like I'm constantly like if I don't. Like I have just pages and pages of journaling because if I don't get the words out of my head, my brain is just going to explode.
That's it, yeah.
Like my journals, I was telling you, Anthony, just recently, like I have like a Google Doc and like the current journal is like over the last 3 months and it's like 100 something pages, like literally in Google Docs. And I just have piles of those because the words are just in my head. So that's why I asked, like, I know you like to write. Do you have something that you do for writing to scratch that itch today? Or are you like, I've written enough, I'm going to take a break from writing to do cooking, skateboarding.
Also, do you type or do you handwrite?
Great question. Yeah,
great question as well.
Let's see. I love the idea of journaling. I'm in my mid-30s now, and I tell my wife how nowadays I need to journal. It's almost like a ballerina kind of like balancing, or like a dancer like balancing. It's like this just gets me balanced again, right?
Yeah.
Then I like to throw it away. It's like great, I'm balanced now, right? So writing is helpful to do that. I've done a lot of handwriting stuff. Man, I've had so many finger cramps. I've just written tens of thousands of words, right? Which I love. But I also, typing is just the way to go, I think, for fast writing. I think writing is really great. I have not wanted to write another book like this since. And so I think that's great too. It's like you don't always have to be this like a dozen books kind of writer, right? So recently I was kind of dabbling like fiction, which I never really done before. I've been like a nonfiction blog writer, and I was like, maybe I could switch to fiction. And it was really hard.
Fiction is so impressive. People that can do fiction, it's very impressive.
It's like a completely different skill.
One of our real quick side note, one of our writers, Whitney, is like, she writes for us. She also does fiction writing as well, and like it's impressive to write good fiction to build a world. Anyways, keep going. Sorry.
Very hard to do, right? So I tried to do that, and then I was kind of like seeing I think I know how this goes. I'm going to write a fiction book. It's really hard for me to do. It's probably not going to go anywhere, which is fine because like my first try. And so if I want this to work, I have to write a lot of books to do it. And eventually, maybe I'll get picked up. Like that's like maybe how it works. I wouldn't expect to be like picked up immediately. I even asked my publisher, I was like, hey, would you want a fiction book? And they're like, I don't know. Like, it's like, do you have any like, proof that you could do it? So a lot of people, I think they kind of get intimidated because once they realize that writing a book, it's more than just like you click publish, I'm done forever. You could do that, but it's hard to like follow that long term, right? It's like a skill like any other. It's like you probably can't expect to be amazing right at first. And if you do, it's like a bit egotistical. It's like why? It's like you're gonna have to practice it, just like all of us have done for years and years, right? Yeah. So I like the idea that we can give people like our clients and other people a chance to do that without having to learn to be like an actual writer. You know, like that's like a thing. Not everyone wants to do that, right? A lot of people are really smart. They have a message to tell, but to actually execute it is really tough. But maybe like me, you just like want to have like one book and it's like, great, I'm done now. I can switch to other things. And so I just like kind of having like that kind of like multi-potentialite kind of like component-based vision of like, I'm going to do this, here's a book, but I've also had these hobbies. I'm also like a family guy. I also have these interests. I've been really liking writing for authors. Like I've ghostwritten way more books. I don't know, like so many more. And so it's like cool kind of stepping in, like helping people write their books and like just completely changing my style. To, like,
I forgot. Yes, I forgot that was probably scratching that itch. That's so funny. The writing
You're like,
books.
Those dozens of books that we did.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Too,
Do you still have a writing practice? Because I know you'll journal from time to time as well, right? Are you handwriting?
I still handwrite, yeah.
So if you have a thought, you're
19, I'm 85 years old.
So if you're out, you're doing something, you're like, oh, I have this really cool thought. Will you wait to write it down until you get home? Will you like pull out a notebook? Like,
no,
what do you do?
So I have my notes app that doubles as my calendar, my passwords and everything. So I pull up the notes app. So if I have like just a quick idea, I'll just type it on my phone real quick. If I have like one of my journals on me, if I'm out, like if I'm at the beach or if I'm just somewhere, then I have my bag on me that has my journal, then I'll pull it out and actually write.
Will you move it from the note into the physical journal?
Yeah. So like if I'm out and something like strikes an inspiration, like or I was in Hawaii, like and I'm like with my daughter and we're all hanging out on the beach or whatever, and like I have that like insight or something that I want to write. I'll just take a little quick note and like add it on my to-do list, and then I'll remember what that note references. And then so like later when I have a moment to be by myself, either in my like morning ritual, I write a lot in the mornings, like post meditation or whatever, or if it's like I just put the kid to bed and I have a little few moments and I'll write then. But similar, like you said, like I have to get I feel like if I don't let stuff flow out of me, like the things that are there, like I'm gonna get like
for me it feels
irritated and like just bothered and something.
Have you ever lived in a place or like stayed at a hotel where like you turn on the sink and the water's running brown for a little bit, but you let it run and maybe it's rust,
like flush it
and
through,
then you let it run enough and then the water comes out clear. That's what it feels like when I'm journaling. Is like my brain is just filled. If I don't write these down, it's just going to keep.
I feel like even on like one of the things I feel like is like on a spiritual level and whatever people believe, I think there's something that's trying to come through me. There's something that needs to be expressed in the universe. And I think Rick Rubin talks about this too, like creativity. Like like the same insights can happen to 20 people at the same time. And the universal whatever consciousness is coming through. Just like there was two Darwins. There was like Darwin that created that idea, but same time there was another guy that was coming up with evolution at the same time. And there's throughout history so many of these things where it's like simultaneously 2, 3, or 4 people are creating the same thing. There's something else that's coming through.
It would have sucked to be the day after Darwin. That would have been a real bummer.
That
next
guy,
day.
The guy was a struggle.
We're working 20 years on this. Darwin.
the guy that was trying to do the light bulb with Bell or whatever. He's like, I'm so close. I was right there. That's like the ultimate.
I know.
But so same thing. I feel like it's the information is there. It's getting connected to everybody or some people that are tuning into it. And I feel like for me, I have to let it flow through. Otherwise I'm going to just like kind of block my flow. And if I don't let my flow of whatever thoughts and energy and everything kind of come through, then it's going to just cause chaos potentially in my life. So I try to like let it have the idea, put it in a notes app, remind me, and then later I'll journal. And I love handwriting. I don't know why. It's something like very cathartic, therapeutic about it. But also I tend to like be able to write like very quickly, like stream of consciousness about anything. And even my own book's the same thing, where it's like it's really just stream of consciousness, and then I might have an editor try to like keep it as close to it but edit it down a bit.
Oh, that's so interesting. So I used to write notes on my phone and then move them to notebooks. I even had special pens that like archival pens that like with the ink will fade, and I had on archival paper or whatever. But it was so, for one thing, I take so many notes that it would take way too long to transcribe. But also I write with a pen so much slower than I can type, and I think so fast that I was like, I can't get the words out fast enough. It's just gibberish now.
Yeah,
it was a whole thing.
Mine's mostly gibberish too. That's okay.
I wonder how we're doing on time. Do we have a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Just go.
Like you guys got all day, bro. We're vibing. Don't even worry about it.
I'm just keeping an eye on the clock. So
that's it. There is no time.
It's all relative.
Let's get down that path, huh?
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of got through all my questions.
Oh, we're negotiating.
Oh, okay.
We're good? Okay.
All right, let's go.
Let's go. Let's do
We
it.
got time.
Yeah, I love it. Writing.
Books.
So am I the
Questions.
only one that handwrites? Is that? I think I'm still probably the only
I
one.
wonder how many people
Probably.
actually write things down as well. Like
Yeah.
all three of us are writers to different extents, whatever. But so I
Yeah.
wonder if we are the exception, or I wonder if other people are constantly jotting down notes and thoughts.
I feel like I mean I know a couple people that, especially with like notes and thoughts and ideas and like in the notes app
Notes
or
and
whatever
thoughts
else.
and-
Notes and thoughts and notes and thoughts and writing.
One thing I'd be curious
yeah.
to actually is, do you happen to have any like resources on writing that you guys have really liked that really help you become a writer? Any books, people?
On writing, like you mentioned earlier, is a really good one. There's
Stephen
also another one. I can't remember the name of it. That's really good. One of the things that I did, I actually took a course on. I've taken a lot of courses, obviously, like years ago, building up the media agency and trying to figure out how to publish. And it wasn't even about publishing or writing or anything really. There was a lot of like social media marketing, all that stuff back in like 2013. But during that same time, when I wanted to figure out how to actually like write a little bit better, I took a course from this guy in New York. It's probably somewhere that was like a screenplay writer's course. I was not writing a screenplay at all, but it was just trying to, and I think that this is something that probably all of us have done in some form or another, is like trying to understand all the different writing styles and trying to understand different ways of communicating the medium. And I think that helped me a lot, because even though I'm not going to write any, I mean, at least right now, I might write a screenplay later, but right now I haven't written any screenplays and don't necessarily want to. But it just helped me understand what I was trying to write and why I was trying to write, what I was trying to do, and putting the thoughts together. And again, it's like nonfiction business and personal development books. There's nothing to do with a screenplay, but that helps. So there's a lot of those things. Also, masterclass. I did masterclass for like a year, and I think I watched every.
How are the courses on there? I've never used
writer.
Masterclass.
It's pretty cool. It's basically
Yeah,
this. It's basically like a long form podcast
With
of,
really
like
well-known,
Malcolm Gladwell or
and is it?
whoever
It's
else.
good
And
content.
really good, and also too, really good content. And I mean, you can check too ahead of time. One thing is like there was a lot of writers in there and a lot of directors, producers, and everything. So like movies and storytelling, I think translates a lot to writing as well, even if it's fiction or nonfiction or fiction. But also too, like the guy that created Sims was in there, and the way he talked about creating the Sims game, I was like, this is God. Like, the way he discussed world building was like, I was like, I don't think you're really, I don't think you're just a human. It was such a trip. I was like, this is so weird.
great.
But like game development and like creating game theory and all those kind of things, those were super beneficial to just like understanding, for at least for me, the way my mind connected the dots was like life itself and also business, and like creating that game out of it, and the strategy and about just reality itself, which again ties into the writing or ties into the strategy for launching and marketing, those kind of things. So yeah, a lot of good resources there.
What about you? I know you talked about yesterday on Writing Well by something Zinzer, William Zinzer. something
Yeah, I
along
just
those
got it the
lines.
other day. I'm not sure the name.
I think it's William Zinzer, something kind of a tealish cover. I know you also did a lot of research. Sure. I know you also did a lot of research, like you said, like looking at other blogs that were, or like other articles that were performing well, and kind of doing some like in the weeds sort of research. What about you? Do you have any other books that you're like, this was very influential for me?
Yeah, I think if you're a writer, if you're anybody who wants to be like somebody that you like, a role model or a mentor or like an icon, just kind of model them. And it's funny, it's like as a writer, like you like never plagiarize. Like that's like another point. That's like the cardinal sin. But it's like, how can you model that? Because what they're doing is working. Their rhythms are working. How can you put your own spin on it? So I had lots of writers I liked following a lot. I always liked Ryan Holiday. I like James Clear. I like guys who just had like these like short, punchy sentences. Malcolm Gladwell, Seth Godin.
Yeah.
It was just like
Purple
no
Cow, baby.
word was like unnecessary. That cut out all the fluff. So and also just like stories of people who have really struggled and kind of come out the other side. Like Stephen King's book on writing is just like the ultimate. Like that guy was broke, but he like had like this manuscript of like Carrie in his back. He was broke. It's like lots can happen from that. So
Love that.
I just like the idea of being a student of whatever game you're in. I think a lot of people, if you're a writer, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're whatever, it can be easy just falling into the trap of saying like, I just have my idea. No one else has this. Like years and years ago, I was speaking with this like guy at like a networking conference, and he had this idea for some business, and he wouldn't say it because he was afraid someone would like overhear him. And I was like, I get that, but like, come on, man, just like it's gonna take a long time to build this thing. Like it's like don't just keep it like locked in. Open yourself up, learn from other people.
It's a
tough.
picture sharing app.
Yeah.
Never been done before.
You can like the picture.
You can like it. You can.
Don't say anything.
There's these things
Picture
called. We're gonna
gram.
call them reels or stories. It'll be a whole
That's
thing.
great.
You got to study how it works. And
But they always- yeah, they
success
always-
leaves clues. I think.
That's it, yeah. And I always talk about
a
too,
good
like,
line.
your idea is good enough that you could share it with everybody. But if you are scared to share it with somebody, then it's probably not good enough because you're probably not the only one that can really do it, or it's not unique to you and all that kind of stuff too. So
I know my early entrepreneurial days, I felt very much like I don't want to tell anybody the thing, whatever. But I didn't realize at the time just how hard execution is. Execution is like all of it. So like
it,
anybody
yeah.
can have the idea. So to execute on it is the whole other
Yeah.
thing. So whether it's a book idea or a business idea, whatever, it's like you can talk about it.
Yeah.
The executing is the hard part,
love that
in my
too.
opinion. So I think we're good.
I think we're good on
I think
time.
we're good.
Yeah.
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 I think we can wrap things up. I got through all my questions.
That's it.
Anthony, is there anything else you wanted to add? Thank you again for being here. This is
Yeah.
so cool.
No, thank you so much for having me here.
He
Check the
won't,
books
he won't
out.
sell the
or
books, so
not.
I'm going to sell it. Oh, yeah, there we go.
I hope it helped you. Anyone who's watching, yeah, go with Authors. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
you.
Page turners,
You were awesome.
Authors.io. That's
Yeah,
it. Thank
like,
you.
subscribe, follow, do some stuff. All right. Thank you, Anthony.
Yep.
You're awesome.
To you as well. All right.
Bye.